All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know a few people are still rolling in, but hopefully they'll be able to catch up here. Welcome to Making Personal Connections Digitally. My name is Laferla. I'm the Director of Communications here at Covisum, and I'm joined today by Katie Godbout, our VP of Sales and Marketing. And we are so excited to talk all things digital marketing. So our agenda for today, we're going to start out by talking about the foundations of building genuine connections. We're going to talk about best practices for making authentic connections. And finally, we're going to end with setting yourself apart from the competition. But before we get started with any of this, we kind of want to get a pulse for where everyone is. So we're going to go ahead and do a poll here. Do you think it's been easy to connect with prospects digitally? So go ahead and answer yes, somewhat, not at all, no wrong answers. Give you a few more seconds to answer that poll. Great. So it looks like most people fall in that somewhat category, feeling a little bit confident, but also a little unsure about where to go from here. And we're going to cover a lot of things today that I think are going to help build your confidence in this space and really kind of take your digital marketing to the next level. All right, so getting started, foundations for genuine connections. Katie, you want to go ahead and take it away?
I would love to. Hello, everybody. So why do genuine connections matter? We're going to start there. One of the most important things is in a relationship is trust. And when somebody's going to give you their money to figure out what to do with, they have to trust you. That's one of the ultimate things in trust. Even married couples don't always share finances with each other. So it's very important to build trust. So connections build relationships, and that's how you build trust. That's the first number one thing you've got to work on. And like I said, money is an intimate thing, even though it's not the same as a wedded relationship. It's an important thing. It makes a person feel vulnerable to tell you about their strengths and weaknesses with their finances. And being vulnerable is also really good from your end. And I think that's one of the things that we'll get into a little bit today is some of the vulnerability that happens with a lot of these digital connections, because we're in our homes, because you can see their home sometimes, they can see yours. That makes you feel a little more vulnerable. It makes you a little more human to them too. So I think that's something we'll get into a bit. People can tell when you're BSing them. So I called this, your nonsense is noticeable. So all of us have experienced the stereotypical used car salesperson or the stereotypical door-to-door salesman who comes over and they're just aggressive and in your face, and all they want is whatever is in it for them. It's not at all about you. And when that's the kind of person you are, whatever industry you're in, people, the consumers, your clients, prospects can tell. And that's a turnoff, especially these days when people do so much educating themselves before they get to the place where they might buy something. Another thing that we say a lot, and I really hope people start to kind of own this, is you cannot be all things to all people. When you do that, it seems like you're casting a wider net, and so you might get more business. But what happens in reality is that nobody hears you, because it sounds like you're talking to everybody else. It sounds like you're talking to them and not me. And so when it is that you target or niche what you're working on, your communications, then people hear you loud and clear, and they can relate, and they feel that trust that we talk about is so important. And so I think that's really important too, to really target, zero in, and build those deeper relationships. That surface level won't cut it for longevity and large growth. And also one of the things that's interesting is, digital connections are easier because I can come down here from upstairs and I can be on the phone with, 300 people just like that. It's no big deal. But in order to get people all together into one space, there's travel and coordination and lots more, details to sort out. And so it is easier, but you do lose some things. You lose some of the body language. You can only see me from here up. You don't know if I'm shaking my knee because I'm super nervous, or if like I'm stepping on my toes over and over again. And so in finance, some of those body language cues are helpful when you're sitting in a room with somebody who says they're fine with how risky their portfolio is, but in reality, you see them sitting on their hands or something else that would give you a cue. Plus, when we think about personal, we think about being able to touch someone, whether or not you actually do, but personal usually means physically close. So that's another obstacle to kind of get over. So that's, why it matters. It's really about trust, authenticity, and building those genuine relationships. So now we're going to transition into how do you build genuine connections without meeting in person? The big thing here is really personalization. So you're not meeting in person, but you can still communicate and say something personal. Put their name in it. Say, hi, Katie, not just hi, or hi, client, even terrible. Don't ever say hi, client. Say hi, nobody, or hi, Katie. Put in some authenticity into your emails, into your videos. Be vulnerable in front of people. One of the things that I've done, I've been working from home since this time last year, and I've got small kids, and I'm in charge of sales. So I've had some pretty big enterprise sales calls with my children during school very nearby. And I always open up those calls and say, hey, we're all working from home. I'm working from home and I have 2 small children. There's a chance. I mean, I've coached them. I've asked them. I was like, hey, boys, leave me alone. I'm going to be on a big, important phone call. But, somebody might break an arm or have like a really sweet Lego castle they built and just show up. And in those cases, I'm vulnerable. I'm like, oh man. But because I said something up front, it lowers people's expectations for how the meeting will go. They won't say like, oh gosh, Katie doesn't care about my business because her kid was home. They'll say like, wow, Katie actually is a pretty nice mom too. Like her kid is an engineer or whatever you have. Something else you can do to build genuine connections is asking the questions and being genuinely interested. A lot of times when I have that conversation about how my kids are home, that brings up that conversation you never have at work is about your kids. And people will say, oh, I've got some too. It's totally okay. Or like, oh yeah, I remember when mine were that age. It's a great age. Or, oh, 2 boys, so you kind of get that building rapport that you used to have to do about the weather or sports on a much more personal note. And expressing interest is really important too. So don't just talk to hear yourself talk, wait and listen and spend some time hearing some things, maybe infer something or ask a question back. And then also take notes and remember so that next time you speak with someone, you can say like, hey, how are you feeling? I know that we're getting COVID tested or whatever. Is everybody okay? How are you feeling? So all that is really important to making genuine connections. And then we'll move on now to what does connecting digitally look like? We obviously know of webinars. Here we are, we're connected. Social media, this is becoming more the norm for financial advisors. There's some new legislation coming out that makes it a little bit easier to do some of this. Zoom meetings, there's this Zoom fatigue now. We've all been on Zoom a ton. Videos. People sometimes forget or are intimidated by doing videos for digital connections. It works. You can record short 5-minute or less videos, 30-second videos, and that's very helpful for your digital presence. Digital downloads. So this is taking things that you would typically print off and making them digital. Your website's super important. You should make that the first place that people will look for more information about you. And also obviously email marketing, one-to-one emails, all of that is super important. So then what we like to do, Lauren and I, we like to make this a conversation. If anybody has any questions at any point throughout, please put them into the questions box and we'll stop after each section and take a couple, and then we'll try to get through all of them at the end. Anything we don't get through, we will do via email digitally. Maybe I'll throw you a video afterwards. Then I think I'm going to pass this on to Lauren.
Perfect. So best practices for making authentic connections. So Katie mentioned video. Video is absolutely crucial in everything we do now. I feel like, we're on a video webinar right now. I see a lot of video on social, and social does, videos on social perform better. So it makes sense to keep seeing video. There are a few best practices that are important to remember. Clothing wise, this goes back to my days of media training actually several years ago, but avoiding stripes and really elaborate patterns allows the camera to read a little bit better. Cameras have changed a lot and are a lot better now, but better to just avoid distracting patterns if you can, or stripes. Lighting, you'll see both Katie and I have kind of a warm lighting. We're in a well-lit space. We're not backlit. Trying to avoid your back to windows is really good. These are on the side. I know it's still not ideal, but anytime you can try to do your lighting in front of you and not behind you, otherwise it kind of makes you look like a shadow. I'm sure you've noticed some of these things if you've been doing videos at all this year. Audio, we've used microphones and had pretty good luck. You can actually get really inexpensive ones on Amazon. We're not using them today, and certainly they're not absolutely essential. But if you feel like you're going to be doing a lot of video, there's a few advisors I've talked to who are doing a lot for YouTube. That might be something worth looking into. So a lot of the tips we're going to have today are kind of a matter of knowing yourself and your practice and how much of video or whatever these elements are that we're introducing are going to be a good fit for you, and going off of the suggestions based on that. So we'll try to show you, a basic kind of medium level, and then maybe if you're a little bit more experienced. So your camera, Katie, I know has played around with a lot of different cameras. I just am using the one on my computer, and that's totally fine. iPhones actually have really, really good cameras these days, and that's what our president and founder uses a lot. He just uses a tripod, sets up his iPhone, and actually the quality is really, really good. So you can get a tripod on Amazon pretty cheap, or Best Buy, and that's a good option. But I know Katie's had good luck too with getting a separate camera, and that it kind of works a little bit better for her. So it's again, kind of know how many videos you're doing, how often you're using video, and that'll kind of help make your decision there. And then editing, we use a few different editing softwares. If you are a Mac user, it comes with iMovie. iMovie is not super intuitive. In fact, I would say iMovie is pretty difficult to use if you're not super used to using an editing software, but it is included in your, as part of your Mac. So if you wanted a free option and you use Apple products, that's a way to go. We use Snagit and have had really, really good luck there. And that's really great, but that's a little bit more basic in terms of just editing the videos and trimming them. And then we've also used Vidyard, which is really, really nice. Vidyard integrates with HubSpot. We are big fans of HubSpot over here at Covisum. And also you are able to kind of draw on the screen, so to speak. And that is really, really helpful. You kind of get those interactive, moments, and that kind of helps people stay engaged. So if you use a lot of video, you do a lot of tutorials, you are showing the software on the screen and sharing your screen, and you do a lot of that, it might be worth looking into whether or not Vidyard would be a good option, because you can circle or highlight or draw attention to certain parts of the screen. How to keep attendees engaged. This is the key question, right? Because even when people, say they're going to attend, they drop off, or, something pops up, or their, kids are yelling in the background, or they're eating lunch or whatever. So there's no true fast way to keep people engaged, but here's a few tips that'll kind of help. Pick topics that are timely and educational. We are seeing a lot of luck right now with Social Security benefit cuts. It's in the news. A lot of people are talking about it. It's no secret that, especially given last year's pandemic and the recession kind of that followed, that Social Security is in trouble. And so that's a great topic to reach out to folks and say, hey, is this a thing that's concerning you? Let's talk about it. And then have those folks opt in. Opting in is always a way to keep attendees and both prospects and clients engaged. Instead of trying to force anything, keeping topics timely, educational, allowing people to decide on their own, this is a good fit for me, is definitely the way to go. Doing an agenda. You saw at the beginning of this presentation, we had an agenda. When you tell people what to expect, they're a little bit more likely to opt in, right? If I know it's 30 minutes and you're going to cover A, B, C, and D, and those are all things I have questions on, great. I can make 30 minutes to do those things. It's a little bit harder for me to find time in my schedule if I don't know what you're really talking about, if I don't know how long it's going to be. So setting those expectations, like Katie said, ahead of time, will really kind of boost the success of getting attendees who want to be there. make it a discussion rather than a presentation. That's what Katie was mentioning with the comments and the questions. We love for these webinars to be a conversation. Like, we want to hear both your questions, and if you know something that you're doing that's working, we'd love to hear that too. That's super helpful to be able to just have a regular conversation with a regular person, and you'll get more information that way when you make it more of a discussion than just talking at somebody. Polls, we just did a poll. Those are super, super nice. You'll see one at the end here that has been really helpful for us, and I'll draw attention to it at the end when we do that poll, because it is super, super helpful to keep people engaged to the point where they have to interact, but you're not asking too much of them, right? You're not, asking them to be on video. You're not asking them open-ended questions. It's really easy for someone to just mark a poll. So that's a really easy way to, if they were doing something else, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, I need to quickly mark. Yes, sometimes I have difficulty with this. So polls are a great way to get a pulse on your attendees, and then for follow-up later, which, like I said, once we run our own poll, I'll show you how that works. Touching base with attendees before, during, and after the meeting presentation is super important. And Katie was mentioning that personal connection with, starting the emails with someone's name. You can even do social media surveys and polls and saying, hey, do you want to talk about A or do you want to talk about B today on these, on our conversation? So there are a lot of different ways to touch base with your attendees. We use email a lot. We use social a lot. You can do videos. And it's just reaffirming and building that relationship over and over again. You're doing things that are educational. They're starting to look to you as a subject matter expert, and they're starting to trust you. And that's really what we're trying to do, is help you develop and build this persona so that your clients and your prospects know exactly who to turn to. Real life experiments, Katie.
That brings us into some real life experiments. So before we had this webinar, we had people reach out to us with some ideas and some thoughts. And this got me thinking, I'm going to do a slide exactly on that. So one of our contacts reached out and said, how do we make this better than what's happening with online education? Because he was tying, the comparison between in class and like the education that financial advisors do for their clients. And that made me start thinking that really we don't want to do what we're doing with education with finance. We want it to be more like healthcare. So like, telehealth has been a thing for a while, but it really took off with the pandemic and COVID. They didn't want you to come in to the doctor if you didn't need to be there. And so doctors got really good at doing these one-to-one videos. I had 3 telehealth meetings, appointments myself while I was home, you still get a prescription. Like, you don't have to go in and see a doctor to get some of this stuff done. So I would encourage the industry to think about it more like telehealth and less like education. Because education, there's so many different variables with children of different ages, resources, the people. There's so many different kinds of people in a classroom all at the same exact time. It's very special and different needs. But typically in financial services, you're either going to be doing a webinar where you do the presentation and it's just to a bunch of adults, or you're going to do one-to-one conversations. And so it's a video chat instead of a full classroom. And so there's some of the things that are a little bit different. The thing with telehealth too, attendees always opt into that. When you're in a classroom with, my children or other people's children, sometimes they opt out, but they're there, you know what I mean? And so it's a different kind of audience. So you typically have a more captive audience when you're thinking about healthcare. And I know we've heard this or seen this before, but I wanted to say it. It's super cliche, but think of it like telewealth. So if you're going to have a telewealth call, you're the doctor, your prospects are the patients. And how is healthcare solving that problem? Think about yourself as the doctor and how the doctor might talk to the patient in the same sort of situation. How would you talk to your patient or your client to say, hey, this part of your health, your wealth isn't up to par right now. And here's the things that we can do to get you where you want to be. Or, hey, you're doing great. I'll see you in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is. One of the things too that we talk about is distractions. So if you want to click over to that next slide, Lauren. I hope everybody saw the I'm not a cat video. So there's a very professional business savvy lawyer on video chat actually in a courtroom. And there's this cat filter on and it's hilarious, but it's also not the end of the world. And they carried on. So when you think about, the kinds of distractions that there are, we've got environmental distractions like my kids showing up in here. I've seen even like on big news outlets, there's like a kid with no pants running in to talk to mommy and she's all like, shush, telling her to go away. But we all understand it. We're all humans, we're all people, and we've had some sort of similar experiment or experience, whether it's the cat or the dog or the kid or the doorbell or whatever it is. Nobody's going to hold you to that, not do business with you because that happened. We're more empathetic and understanding now. So really the big solution is to roll with it. Just smile and carry on, do the next best thing you can. And so just when you think about it, mention at the beginning that you're working from home or whatever the distraction might be that you can anticipate, mention it. Say, hey, there's a chance I'm expecting a package delivery. It said it's coming at 4, but sometimes they come early. So if the doorbell rings, don't worry about it. I'll continue focusing on with you, but my dogs will probably bark. Just be vulnerable and human about it. The technical skills. So yeah, this lawyer could have got on. So Lauren and we got on a half an hour early and made sure that the cameras were pointing in the right direction. I was doubly sure there was no weird princess filter on me or a cat filter. So get on and practice first if you're worried that you might end up as a cat. And otherwise just laugh with it. Hopefully you can get the cat filter off. Some of the other things that we heard in advance of this meeting, what if the client is FaceTiming you on their phone and it's a tiny little screen and you were planning on screen sharing? This is one of those things where communicating in advance is helpful. And then if it comes up, you just do the next best thing you can. So in advance, say, hey, if possible, please be on your computer or near your computer, whether they're video chatting you or just on a telephone, because you want to show them some documents and say, hey, I'm going to need to screen share. Do you have a computer available? If not, a lot of people these days are driving by and dropping off on the porch. You can always drive by and drop off an envelope. Here's the stuff that we're going to be discussing later today. I just wanted to get it to you in advance so you have a chance to look it through. You can always do that. And worst case scenario, you can always mail it. Say, hey, we got a meeting next week. Mail it to them with the good old USPS. So that's that on some real life experiments. We do have a couple of questions. Jeannie Lee said, what are your thoughts on using texts to communicate and the other avenues that are really crowded? My take on using texts is do it if that's what your audience wants. There are certain places that I really like to get a text message reminder to say like, hey, your appointment is in 2 hours or your appointment is tomorrow. I think reminder texts are great. You'll want to do compliance related things also with your text. You're not going to want to send actual financial advice or information via text, but definitely communicating about meetings or something personal too. Like I sent my hairdresser a recipe last night because I know she likes it. And so stuff like that is okay to send via text. People do communicate that way. But make sure it's somebody who likes it. If it's somebody who doesn't read or answer texts, don't. One of the things I've always told my team, I'm in communications for my job, is you can talk to me wherever and I will respond. You can Facebook message me, you can talk to me on LinkedIn, you can text me, you can Snapchat me, whatever it is that you want to do, I can do that with you. But not everybody does that. So if you're my dad and you get a text, you might hear from him in a couple of days. We had a couple of other questions. Did you want to catch any of those now or should we do those at the end, Lauren?
Yeah, we can do a couple of these. How to best invite, encourage, and have reluctant clients engage on Zoom or digital media. So many are camera shy or were suffering from the COVID coma and they have become very reclusive. That's very true. Do you have a welcome to the world Zoom kit that could be helpful to get folks to try and discover the medium? Do you have any? I have a few thoughts about this one. I think you kind of need to meet people where they are. Right. So if they are so reclusive and adverse to Zoom, I think you need to start with some baby steps and it depends on where they're at in the spectrum. It might be that, you need to pick up the phone and call, because this is just not top of people's concerns. I know, Joe Elsasser, the founder and president of Covisum, is also a practicing financial advisor. And one of the things his firm did immediately when COVID kind of shut everything down is they called everyone to see where everyone was kind of at, both in terms of were they freaking out that the market had dipped, and in terms of kind of, how receptive were they to having conversations with their advisor. A lot of them felt pretty fine, actually. And we're like, oh, we can check in our usual check-in in the fall. But I think that's where you know your clients and know that this is not going to be a one approach fits all. I would maybe even start for some who are not super comfortable with Zoom. Why not record a video and send the video? If they're okay with email, send a link that includes a video and get them kind of into video. So they're dipping their toe in the water. It's going to be really, really, really difficult to get someone who cannot stand Zoom or is so nervous or definitely doesn't want their camera on to just immediately jump into it. I think you really need to ease them into it. And I don't think you should ever make it mandatory for somebody else's camera to be on, personally speaking. I know that's not a hard, fast rule, but we don't even, we encourage it at Covisum, but it's not like a requirement that your camera must be on at all times. And there are plenty of times where I just got back from a run and I'm just going to leave my headshot up for this meeting because I don't feel like I want to be on camera. So I think it's really going client by client there. It's hard to just do one hard and fast rule for all of them. And I think you really need to ease people in if they're that adverse to using Zoom, is my thought process. Katie, do you have anything to add there?
No, we'll move on. I totally agree though. I think that it's not a requirement to do video. I think that sending a video is good. One of the other things I suppose I do want to add is sometimes you can lower their guard. So, I mean, just taking a tip from a ladies' night, before we meet up, we're like, is it sweatpants or is it, fancy? Are we getting dressed up? And so if it is that that there's somebody who really doesn't want to feel like they're on TV or fancy or have to get a certain way, be like, hey, real low key, I'm going to be wearing my baseball hat. You can always lower that expectation on their end too, to let them know that you're just going to be wearing a t-shirt and a baseball cap too. Again, you got to play it to your audience. So if it is that they'll think that you're some punk kid instead of a real smart advisor, don't do that. But I think people have kind of lightened up about dress expectations for some things. Let's move on to the setting yourself apart from the competition, Lauren.
Yeah, so setting yourself apart from the competition. So setting SMART goals, that's something we've talked about extensively here at Covisum, and we've done a lot of in our conversations, as we talk about what is effective and smart marketing. And so, the SMART goals are, they're actionable, they're achievable, all of the elements that go into making sure that you can reach those goals and that they are going to be effective. So that's important for your digital marketing. You don't want to go out and try to immediately do all the things all at once. You want to think very strategically about what your plan should be for digital marketing. And I know we're throwing a lot of things out here, but even if you take just one or two away from this presentation and focus on setting really clear SMART goals for those two things and how to implement them in your practice, you'll be so much better for it. Identifying your ideal client and marketing to that client. As Katie mentioned earlier, and I swear I'm going to have plastered all over my wall, is you cannot be all things to all people. You just can't. You're not going to be as effective. People are going to recognize that, like, oh, you're not the advisor for me. But if I know you specialize in my specific group and my specific issues, and you can answer my questions better than any other advisor, why wouldn't I go to someone who knows the concerns I have? It's the same as, Katie used the example of a doctor earlier, right? I'm not going to just go to a general practitioner if I have a very specific issue that I need to see a dermatologist for, right? So if you're an advisor who focuses in a very specific space and you've identified, this is my type of ideal client, I'm going to market specifically to that client, that is going to set you apart from the competition better than anything else. You know exactly who to go to when you are, a middle-aged divorcee, or, you're retiring and you have questions about Social Security. you have established yourself as an expert and a trusted source for all things related to the questions that they have. Focus on the customer experience. I mean, that is always absolutely crucial, you know, that from the beginning to the end, the experience with you should be one of, you know, feeling that they are, you know, they can trust you, that you're an expert, that they are getting an education from you, as opposed to just, you know, kind of a salesy pitch. From the beginning to the end, you want to make sure that this is an ideal customer experience, that they feel like this is a partnership and it's going to make them stick around and tell their friends about you, which is ideal, obviously. And getting reviews and promoting them to prospects. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the new ad rules from the SEC that are going to take place on May 4th is when they start being implemented. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for financial advisors here. I know that Katie and I don't have a ton of time to get into this today, but we're planning to do another webinar. So look in your emails maybe next month or the month after, where we're really going to dive into how you can get reviews and promote them to prospects and use this new ruling to your advantage. So stay tuned for more information about that. But in the back of your head, maybe start thinking about how you can implement that into your practice and into your digital marketing strategy.
I'm going to chime in real quick on that one. The digital review is the new referral. And so forever advisors have been focused on trying to get referrals and how do you amplify and up, referral marketing. And I think that being able to get reviews and then market the reviews you've gotten, so long as you're getting good reviews, that's going to take the place of referral marketing. You're going to do that. And so that's why it's so important to focus on customer experience, because your happy customers will give you good reviews, and then people will Google you and find the good reviews and be like, oh, okay, 4.5 stars out of 5 and 3 verbatims that say like this advisor is going to have my best interest in mind. Perfect. And then you'll get more business.
How do we fit in? So we were a financial technology company that provides software for financial advisors who specialize in the mass affluent in or nearing retirement. And we have 4 different software options: Social Security Timing, which was one of the first Social Security optimizers on the market. And we have kind of exciting things coming out of there with some benefit cuts and some other really cool things that are kind of in the works. So if you haven't checked out Social Security Timing recently, or it's been a while, you might want to look into some of the new things we're doing there. Tax Clarity shows you your client's marginal tax rate and where one additional dollar of income could push them into a much higher bracket. It also makes it very clear where, Roth conversions are maybe a good option. So that's a very popular software with our advisors. Smart Risk uses a heavy tail model instead of the Gaussian model for estimating risk. And then Income Insight is our newest platform, which does kind of holistic retirement planning and looks at all of the different income streams in retirement and allows you to build a plan and then stress test that plan against different life events, like a long-term care need or a down market. So a lot of different elements in terms of, the retirement income space and how to best serve your clients in retirement. We kind of have a software for all of them. Also, we have webinar marketing kits for all of the different options. And so they come included. If you subscribe to any of the softwares, you get the corresponding marketing kit. So if you get the Social Security Timing, if you subscribe to that software, you also get the marketing kit included with that, and that's all Social Security based. Or you can buy the marketing kit standalone. There's going to be more information on our website. I have a bunch of information I can send out if you're interested, but I just want to give you a high level overview that we have a ton of great marketing materials if digital marketing is something you want to look more into.
The cool part about those two is we are starting to do extra consumer facing videos. So video is a hard and scary thing for people who don't do them. So we're trying to create more of those for you, and we're including those free of charge with the subscription. And as we create them, we dump them in there. So there's no extra fee to get the latest and greatest in that stuff. We'll just continue to create content as it's relevant. So that's pretty, if I was an advisor, I'd be really happy to have us making stuff for me. So that's pretty helpful.
So this is the poll I mentioned at the beginning that would be a great poll for you to include yourself if you're doing a webinar, which is would you like to talk one-on-one? So let me go ahead and launch this one.
And after you've answered your poll, if there are other questions, we will spend about 15 minutes answering questions, up to 15 minutes after we're done with the presentation.
Great. So would you like to talk one-on-one? Yes, I'm a Covisum software prospect and I'd like a demo. Yes, I'm a software customer and I want to see what's new, which there are a lot of cool new things. And yes, I would like to personally talk to you, or thanks, I'm good for now, and we will leave you alone. The reason this is effective for you too is you get a perfect pulse on where the attendees lie, right? You're not going to put all your attention into the people who are like, no, I'm good for now. But if someone's asking you to reach out, or someone says, yeah, I have a specific question about Social Security, that is a perfect segue. I mean, you can get any better opportunity to reach out to them and be able to answer their specific question and really build that relationship. So
when people feel heard, sometimes, doing nothing is what's best for your relationship, is to just leave them alone and come back when they're ready. They were still poking around. They still want to sniff you out. They're not ready.
Absolutely.
Not hustling them when they just want a hug. That's a good thing.
All right, so let's do a few more questions here.
I can take this next one from Mary. She says, can you be more specific on how to make it a discussion when you're presenting to a group of people? That's a great question. Yes, we can be more specific. How do you make it a discussion? I think it's just like that, by encouraging people to ask questions, again, addressing them by name so that they know that it was their question and not somebody else who asked a very similar question. And that kind of leads into Matt's question, is where do I look? Do I look at the camera? Do I look at the video of my camera? Do I look at my client's face, my notes? Where do I look? And I would say, how would you, do you think this much about your eyes when you're in a room with somebody and where you're focusing your eyes? Sometimes you're looking directly at your client. Sometimes you're looking a little bit away from your client. Sometimes you're looking down at your notes. I think that you be authentic, be organic, be human. If you're just staring right at the camera, it's a little bit weird. You know what I mean? So we've all gotten used to kind of seeing each other, look at each other's videos. And so sometimes you even see people who are on the side, but they're looking at you because their monitor's just over there. If you're trying to be extra professional, try to look at their face on the monitor. They'll feel that on their side. But it's totally okay to look at your notes or your screen, or, behind you or out the window real quick because something happened. Be a normal human being for the most part. For the most part, be a normal human being.
All right, my office doesn't have overhead lighting, so anytime I'm on camera, my face is in the dark. I've tried lighting in front, on the side, and behind me, and nothing seems to work. Do you have a suggestion for lighting? Yeah, that's a bummer, Scott. I've had a similar version of that in the past where we had fluorescent lighting. That was just so bad that I finally nixed the fluorescent lighting. And what I did is a very backwards way of doing this, but I actually got those like the lamps from the hardware store that you can clip onto things. And I clipped them onto tripods, and then I put shower curtains in front to dull the lights. And I did a bunch of them at different heights, which recreated the illusion of lighting kind of coming from the top. I know that seems like a lot of work, but it was actually fairly inexpensive and pretty cheap, because you can buy, the tripods, and then the other things are just at the hardware store. So that is an option. I know that's probably not the easiest option, but if you were really feeling like you have tried everything and you don't know what else to try, and this is something you really want to try, that's the route I would maybe go. And I actually found a whole article on it, which is what gave me the idea. And I'm happy to send that to you, Scott, via email. So I know not a super easy answer, but that is maybe one potential option.
Totally true. Do you want me to grab the next one, or you got it?
No, go for it.
Cool. So Fred is a friend of mine. Happy to see you here. He says, it seems that marketing and sales are no longer separate, and both are needed as a prelude to a webinar, during and follow up. What is your reaction to that statement? So sales and marketing aren't separate. They are distinct, but business really is the umbrella that covers up sales, marketing, customer experience, revenue gen, lead gen, all of it. So it's really business that, it's one arm is marketing, one arm is sales, one arm is HR, one arm is, appointment setting. And so you can't really separate any of them because they're all part of the same whole, which is your business. So that's really my reaction, because you need other things too besides sales and marketing to do a webinar before, during, and after. You've got to have some technology skills. You've got to have logistics. You've got to be organized. You've got to have some content to talk about. So sales and marketing are definitely best friends forever. And they showed up to this party together, and they're leaving together, and they're going to make sure that they get home safe. But they're distinct. I think that, you've got to, marketing, you might think of as a little bit of the softer, friendlier side. But if you can apply that softer, friendlier side to the sales aspect of doing business, that's where you get that comfortable place with just enough vulnerability and humanity that you can build trust and build real relationships. And so I think that that's really what's at play. And Fred, feel free to call me and we can chat anytime, and we can even debate it if you wanted to. That's fine.
At LPL, we are not allowed to post or share reviews. Bummer. Any
well,
thoughts?
And not now, like,
right. It hasn't gone into effect yet.
They may change that. They may not.
I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out a little bit more. I'm seeing a lot of interesting articles about how this is going to affect a lot of different groups. So I think we're going to see this play out over the next couple months a little bit more. But texts work very well for young investors, says John. Hot tip. Great to know.
John was also messaging me on my watch. I wonder if I'm a younger investor.
Are you a younger investor?
He said something to me about how you are me and I am you, and I didn't understand it. So I'll have to circle back to him on that.
He also has several clients who have implemented SMS capability on their websites. We didn't talk much about website, but a few of our other webinars talk a lot about how you can optimize your website and make sure that you're answering your prospects and clients' questions on your website. So that's always an important thing to check out. Would the video be custom made under my own branding? Oh, are you talking about, I think Mac's probably talking about the videos that we are doing for consumers.
The answer is no. We don't make them with your branding, but we also don't make them with our branding. So we do like if you wanted a branded video, you on your side could bookend it. You can download the actual MP4 file and put that on your own website. So that is great. And as a person being scrappy without like a whole bunch of video resources, that will work just fine. It won't say Covisum all over it. It won't say any other firm all over it. If you've got, some of the basic video editing skills and want to put your logo coming in the front and your own disclosures on there or something, you certainly can do that yourself. No, we won't do it because we're still a fintech company and not a marketing company. We just know that marketing is what helps you grow your business. And so we try to provide all the resources we can.
Absolutely.
Fred says he'll do that. I think I'm going to get a call.
All right.
Any other questions? That's what we've got, I think, here.
Yeah, there's a few more, but I think we'll be able to address those probably separately in an email. I want to make sure we're cognizant of everybody's time. So if we didn't get a chance to follow up with your questions, or there's maybe a little bit more to the answer that we think of, we'll go ahead and shoot that over via email. Look at us using some digital marketing. And anyone who is interested in the recording, we will get that edited and sent out to you shortly as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you next time.